Hello and welcome to the Bloodstream Podcast, a show serving the greater bleeding disorders community, brought to you by Believe Limited and Bloodstream Media, and made possible thanks to our presenting sponsor, Takeda. I am your patient advocate and host, Patrick James Lynch.
And I'm your guest host and blood brother, Marc Pangilinan, reminding you to please speak with a healthcare professional before making any treatment decision.
That is a good idea. On today's show, it is part 2 of our Bloodstream Podcast Blood Brother collaboration, featuring the voices of numerous blood brothers from around the country. Marc, my co-host for the discussion, is once again here with me in studio to co-host this episode.
Amy, got to be careful. I'm getting really comfortable here.
You can tell he's getting comfortable. We've got all that and more. Welcome to Bloodstream. Listeners, if you like what you hear, please share this episode on social media. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to the Bloodstream Podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. I also want to remind you, dear listeners, that the Bloodstream Podcast is indeed made possible by our presenting sponsor, Takeda. Yes, that's right, Takeda. Takeda's got this website, bleedingdisorders.com, where you can learn all about Takeda's resources for and commitment to the bleeding disorders community. Takeda, Marc, get this, believes in a world free of bleeds.
That's amazing. That's an ambitious dream. I think we all share it, though.
I agree. We do share that. And they're dedicated more than ever in their efforts to offer a wide range of programs and support to help patients throughout their treatment journey, wherever on that journey they may be. And you can learn more by simply visiting bleedingdisorders.com. One more time, just in case, that's bleedingdisorders.com. And for their founding and ongoing support of the Bloodstream Podcast, I would just like to say thanks, Takeda. So, Marc, welcome back. I'm guessing most who are listening to this will have already heard part 1 and have a pretty good idea of what we're up to, so I don't think we need to rehash any of that. But I'm curious to know from you, rewinding the tape a few weeks to when we initially had this conversation, what about it resonated with you the most or has stayed with you the most since we first all met?
Thank you, Patrick. There are a couple of things that resonated with me that kind of still stick with me that I think about more often than I honestly care to admit. The biggest was the vulnerability that the guys on the podcast shared. They were just open and honest. There was support. There was just a level of compassion that I think is very unique to, not necessarily bleeding disorders, but rare disease communities. I think I mentioned on the podcast, but there's that level of instinctual trust that when you're in spaces like these, that you can open yourself up, that you don't have to explain yourself, you don't have to give context. Again, this is repeat from the podcast, but I really saw it during our podcast, during the recording itself. And I thought that was so powerful that it reiterated the power of having these types of conversations and making sure that they are a mainstay when we think about mental health support or community. And the other thing was, as I just said, the support. So one thing that you may not realize, wonderful viewer, that after the actual recording, Patrick and I took a little time, about an hour after the recording officially ended, to have more of a traditional breakout, closed-door session with the guys who stayed on. And again, it's closed door for a reason. We're never going to release that information. It wasn't recorded. But if you could see the level of support everyone had for each other, there was a lot of deeper sharing. There were a lot of fears that were brought up. And there was no comparison. There was no, I've been through worse, you'll be fine. It was, hey, I've been going through that sort of same thing too. And, this is what I did. If it helps, I just want to share my experience. That's what you get when you have that's the dream. That's the goal of these, when you have these kinds of conversations, that you'll find strength in each other because you have this shared condition. Again, every person and every life is unique, but you can always find compassion and understanding and even some similarities with other people. And maybe they didn't approach the situation you may have, but you got a different perspective on how it could be approached. Right. And that's what I feel like, that's where the power of these conversations really lies.
Yeah, totally agree with you on that. And to that point, given the value of the Blood Brotherhood program, can you give the audience a little indication as to where the program is headed in 2026?
Yeah. So excited to share some new things about our Blood Brotherhood program. So traditionally, we would hold our Blood Brotherhood chats every month just based on the level of participation and maybe there's a lot of factors, we've actually shifted to a sort of an online forum as a start. So there's a couple of different levels. So if you go to hemophiliafed.org, our website, and access our Learning Management Central, which is our educational hub, there is a section for Blood Brothers, where if you're familiar with Reddit or any sort of discussion online forum, this is a place where Blood Brothers can log in. And we have others for Blood Sisterhood as well and other groups. But as a Blood Brother, you can go in, type in, share, what you feel, what you're going through, any questions you may have as a male with a bleeding disorder, just in general. These comments are facilitated, they are monitored. But we just trust and ask that anyone who participates keep good language, be respectful. But this is a place where you can get discussions going on your comments, on your questions, on your thoughts. And we have someone like on staff, like myself, monitoring these discussions. And if there's a topic that comes up that says, someone posted this topic and it resonated, there were 100 comments following it, we need to have a conversation about that. We will set up a call to have a discussion on that topic. And we want to make sure that when we're scheduling these chats, we have a topic that resonates with many, many people, that people get excited and interested to talk about. We hold our annual HFA symposium, which is our conference, our national conference, where you have the opportunity to meet more Blood Brothers in person there. So definitely a lot of exciting things for the Blood Brother program going into the future. So hopefully see you on there.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you for that update, Marc. Yeah. All right, listeners, quick reminder about the structure of this. So we identified 4 priority topics for the conversation: complicated grief, being new to the community, wearing multiple hats in the community, and challenges across the lifespan. Each participant was given about 4 minutes to share on the topic of their choosing. And during the portion that you'll hear today, we made it through everyone and went back through the group for a spontaneous round 2. So we'll dive back in, starting with Sid in California, right after this. This next segment is brought to you by Genentech. If you're living with a bleeding disorder like hemophilia A, like me, staying active may be important to you. Genentech gets it, and they're excited to help you connect with their team and the vibrant community of people living with hemophilia A. Genentech offers one-on-one support from experts and provides resources where you can hear real stories from people living with hemophilia. Learn about events you can go to, and discover how the hemophilia community manages physical activity with a bleeding disorder. Everyone's experience is different, but there is no substitute for the support of a community that truly understands life with hemophilia A. To meet members of the community and to hear more about their hemophilia A journey, head to www.hemophiliacommunity.com.
My name is Sid Ramirez. I'm from California. I have severe hemophilia A with an inhibitor, still active. Broke through a few times, but never really stayed away. Going to talk a bit about my evolution with hemophilia and then how it's led to a bit of complicated grief in my life, I guess, at certain points. Yeah. I have, with my inhibitor, my family has a history of hemophilia. My uncle had severe hemophilia, got HIV and stuff like that. So I grew up seeing him go through it. And when I was growing up, started on FIBA, had a lot of bleeds. By the time I was 10, was in a wheelchair, couldn't walk, had no cartilage left in my knees. So I kind of came to terms pretty early on with limitations and being okay with not being able to do as much as other kids were, things like that. But I had a good support system that kept me driven and motivated to at least not get lost in feeling too down about the losses of physical activities. So I was grateful for that. When I was 14, Novo came out and I was able to get on that. And I was one of the first hemophiliacs, one of the first few with inhibitors that Children's Los Angeles decided they would feel safe enough doing knee replacements on. So when I was 14, I did that and that worked well. And through the years, I'm now on my 3rd knee replacement for my right knee because of infections. And I've had complications with that. But through all of it, I was able to, after I got my knee replacement, I decided, okay, I don't want to end up at a job. I only have limited time where I'm going to be physically able to do something fun. And I decided I want to be a chef. So I did that for about 8 years. I went to school and worked in LA, worked 8-hour shifts on ankle bleeds, and then went to the ER and had awful veins. So had to get stick like 15 times to get on my Novo to hopefully get to work the next day or two. It was hard, but like everybody in here, we all went through that period where it was worth it. And I knew I was going to pay for it eventually, just decided it was worth it. And eventually ended up needing to get a more stable job, got one of those. I've been very lucky enough to find a wife. I just celebrated 18 years being with her, dating. We've been married for 9. And I'm grateful every day that she's here with me to support me and help me through all of this. We have an amazing son. He's 6, about to be 7 in January. And I fought through addiction. So the other story about fighting through that, and I went to rehab, very important. Some of the complicated grief I'm dealing with at this point is I have been part of the community. I have done studies for things. I've been part of advisory boards. I've had advocacy people talk to me. At this point in my life recently, I've had every single one of those people that I've seen at events fail me when it comes to my knee and complications with it, to the point where now I'm looking at getting a half amputation instead of a surgery that could have been done. And so feeling like that advocacy has no support within the system in which it was taught to me is kind of shocking to come up against at this point. But another part of the life system we all go through. Been hard, but it's okay. And I am grateful every day that the community exists for families that are still new to the community. It helped me immeasurably. And I'm grateful every day for forums like this where we get to share amongst other people that go through it. So thank you guys very much.
Hello, everybody. My name is Hector. I am 36. I have hemophilia A moderate. Sometimes, depending on who's looking at my blood levels, my factor VIII levels, sometimes I'm considered mild, sometimes I'm considered moderate. But I consider myself moderate. 5%, I'm at 5% factor VIII. There's so many topics that resonate with me. The one that I can definitely talk about is a bit of the realization of the trauma that all of us, to some degree, experience, just from being very small to teenagers, in college or after high school. Sometimes when I navigate through the healthcare system, I live in California, but I live in the rural part of California. For me, I realized that there's definitely a disadvantage of trying to access care or a standard of care depending on where you live or what you have nearby. When I went to college in LA, I was without factor for almost 7 years. I had no factor with me in my university. I had nobody to go to at the time, even though there was someone from a pharmaceutical company at the time who attempted to help me reach out to certain people in the area that I could rely on. But when I look back at those years, having no medication at hand, not going to see a dentist for 7, 8 years, and also oral health and hemophilia, I think that's something that it's important. When I came back home to the rural part of California and I was trying to connect with the hematologist, the first thing he told me was, do you take plasma? And this is 2015. And when you realize that a professional, and I hate to be this way, but that says a lot about the information that you're supposed to trust this individual. So a lot of my interactions with the hematologists and people in this part of the state have left me a bit discouraged. I do have an HCC, but I have to drive more than 4 hours to see an HCC in Sacramento at UC Davis. It got to the point as I'm aging that I just cannot handle driving more than 4 hours. And back home, it's like 8 hours. It's an 8-hour drive. And so, yeah, I'm starting to realize there's definitely things that make you realize as you're aging as well, that there's definitely, we have a lot of hurdles and obstacles as we're aging.
That we certainly do. That's one of the themes of tonight, that's for sure. Well, thanks for sharing. I appreciate that. Steve, you are up next. After you will actually be Eric. Go ahead, Steve.
I'm very unusual in this community. I'm 80 years old, and my joints got bad because of arthritis. No target joints. I'm 3 to 6%, but I hardly ever bleed. I'm a B. I want to talk about grief. In 2017, at Leading X, I shared a sea kayak one day with Barry Hardy. A few months later, in February of 2018, he completed suicide. None of us saw it coming, although we got off on the wrong track because he lost the pedals. Peripheral neuropathy in both feet. He never complained. But that got so bad, and losing his job, he completed suicide. We didn't see it coming. He was a hero to the community. A few months after that, my cousin's grandson, Joe Halleck, opioid addiction at age 28, completed suicide. Carlitha Gates, who was on the board of HFA with me, suggested I take mental health first aid, which I did. Later on, HFA trained 250 people in that, which I thanked them for a few years later. One year we lost Max, Mary and May's son, then Nathan, Joe, and then after mental health first aid, one year we didn't lose anybody. This summer at Beats, I was having lunch. I got a call from my brother. Joe's brother, Paul, completed suicide. He was healthy, active, living his best life, outdoorsman, didn't have to go to Gen 9, completed suicide. In this community, I've talked with Chad Blair and Chris Templin, both of whom were the camp counselors for these two Halleck brothers. They say there are young men in their 20s, now in their 30s, where Paul is now, or was. They completed suicide. There's still stuff going on. In Paul's case especially, there were no hints whatsoever. Joe, yeah, you could see some cynicism on his Facebook. So we need to be aware of people in our community. Kelly Lynn Gonzalez talks about it's okay to not be okay. What I took from mental health first aid, and I picked out two things. One, do not be afraid to bring it up. Are you having suicidal ideations? It's better to risk losing a friendship than to lose a friend. The other thing I picked up from that is basically ask the question, do you have a therapist? At one of our retreats, a blood brother, knowing I had some training, said to me, let's have a talk. We sat down next to one another, not face-to-face, not confrontationally, and he talked about being depressed. Felt he wasn't supporting his family properly. It was really disturbing him, and he had some suicidal thoughts. And I asked him the question, do you have a therapist? Before training, I would have said, dummy. That's not what you say. What you say is, have you thought about it? Have you discussed it with anybody? Well, yes, my wife has. And basically, from what I can gather, he's doing okay now. And so, but then again, you're doing okay, but maybe you're not continuing to do okay. You have to be alert to it. So we have to be alert to one another. I've been fortunate. I'm 80 years old. I've had almost no hemophilia issues. I'm known as Uncle C, the luckiest guy in the room. So my grief comes from seeing other people in the community having problems, not having them well addressed.
Well, you're a great advocate for the community, Steve. And just in that share, I think you named like 20 people in the community. So just reinforcing how embedded in it you are. And I appreciate you being here and sharing. Thank you, man. Eric, you are up next. Go right ahead. You have the floor.
Thank you. So I've actually never done any particular situation like this. So this is brand new to me. So just thank you guys for sharing and allowing me to be part of it. But I guess the part I want to speak on is just more so the grief or just, my personal feelings with it. And I'm pretty sure a lot of you can possibly relate. It's just oftentimes, even as a young man, we kind of go through life with this whole I'm invincible type of ordeal, especially when you haven't had a bleed in so long, you're thinking I'm good, I'm normal. But then as soon as you get that bleed, you start realizing, okay, this is actually something serious. I can't just ignore this. I can't push it off to the side. It's something that is here to stay. And then also, when it is a genetic mutation, because I am type A severe diagnosed at 6 months old, say you're in a position where you have a bleed in both arms, you're in the hospital. You have your parent there who will most likely tell you to your face, I don't know what you're going through, but all I can do is, just try and give you advice. And that kind of hits a little bit harder because even though you do have someone that is caring for you, it's not the same level of understanding of this is why this is happening X, Y, Z. So it's just one of those things where it's good to have a sort of local community involved with you. And growing up in Beaufort, South Carolina, I still reside in South Carolina. I was actually told from the ages of me being born to, I want to say, 16, that I was one of 3 hemophiliacs in the Southeast. So it's just the information that you get that goes along with this diagnosis plays a lot on your mental. And I will congratulate all of us that are here because it's not an easy thing to live with and or fathom because it's just certain points that are really, really low lows. And you sometimes when you have a high, that high is very fleeting because you never know when your next bleed will come. It could be something as simple as playing basketball, sleeping, having your foot hanging off the bed. It's so simple and easy to get discouraged. But then you have to think about all the positive aspects that you do have. I am 31. I want to say around the age of 19, I got to the point where I was just like, hey, this is me. I started explaining to people what hemophilia is, not necessarily shying away when I had to do certain things or just the nervousness of explaining things to people. So at a certain point, it just becomes easier and easier and easier. And something that I am proud of is I want to say within the past 3 years, I've actually been involved with the upstate hemophilia chapter. I've been doing pictures and videos for them as well as being on the board because I kind of want to help be that bridge towards the younger generation. Of course, the ones that are already involved and on the board, because say there is another group of young kids out there who feel like they are the only one dealing with this issue. And it's just like, if it's not the case, we need to make sure that that is known so that we can form this brotherhood, form this family at an early age instead of someone just thinking, oh, woe is me. Because once you get in that mindset, it's just so very hard to get out of. So that was my spiel.
Great spiel, Eric. Nice to meet you. Thanks for sharing. I will go ahead and take a share myself here. I'm so thankful for everybody who's shared tonight. And Marc, thank you for being a partner in crime and putting this together. I think I purposefully didn't come in with something that I wanted to talk about, but there's been so much that has bubbled up for me. I think in particular, this concept of complicated grief. I lost my brother when he was 18 and I was 21 back in 2007. And my daughter, who's 4.5, has in the last 6 months gotten very curious about him. And I didn't want to deal with having to explain death and dying to her at such a young age. So when we were first putting together a family photo album, because she's got family in different places, we wanted her to feel connected. My wife asked, do you want to put a picture of Adam in there? And I said, no. And I mean, I have his name tattooed on my body. I dedicate most of my life's work to him. I'm very comfortable with keeping him in the forefront. But I didn't want to put death in front of her at a young age. And at the same time, now at 4.5, she's become very interested in death. And she knows he's gone and she wants to talk about him. And she wants to ask me if I miss him and if he would have found this thing funny or if I think he would like this thing we're doing. And for the most part, it makes me joyful because in a way she's keeping him alive and it's her relationship to him, even though he's not here. And at the same time, there are times where I want to be like, can you please stop asking me about it? I do not want to talk about this right now. And it's strange but I do miss him like hell. And she gives me these new windows to talk about it. And it feels important to take advantage of those. And I do want to keep him alive, and I do want her to have a comfortable idea of who he is ultimately. So I think I'm processing in real time, trying to reconcile how much I'm supposed to talk to my daughter about my deceased brother. I partially blame all the Disney movies because there's always a dead parent or someone's dying in the movie. So we watched Friday Night Movie Night. We've probably shown her 30, 35 movies in the last couple of years where there's like a dead person in the family who's at the forefront of the story. So I guess what do I expect? But it's real. Complicated grief, unprocessed trauma. It's very real. And it's not always obvious. To Steve's earlier point, sometimes you can see the cynicism or hear it in someone. And so I think for those of us who either struggle from time to time or are trained to make sure that we're not just checking in on ourselves, but checking in on our brothers and sisters out there, I think that's a responsibility that, speaking for myself, at least I have. So that's my time. I see there's something in the chat here. Marc, did you want to speak to something real quick? A little bit of a round two. Oh, Murali, that was from you. Sorry, I thought that was from you, Marc. Murali, is there something that you wanted to share about new to the community? A little round two?
What I wanted to talk about is something that is not mentioned much here because everybody seems to have had some history or the other. I have had no family history. I have had no one who was a hemophiliac for 29 years of my life that I could know, and no treatment. You've heard all that earlier. So what I have realized is you have to make your life yourself. You have to advocate for yourself. Right from the days of when I used to infuse 30 cc's of product, I advocated saying, this is too much. I'm gaining weight from this. And it had made a difference in the pharmaceuticals, reduce it down to 5 cc, et cetera, et cetera. So I'd learned that if you ask, there is a good chance that you will get what you're asking for. The pharmaceuticals are listening to the community. I'm not advocating for pharmaceuticals because I'm not part of that in any way. I work independently. What I have realized as an aging hemophiliac, I'm 65, hemophilia A severe, 29 years in India, the rest of my life in the Chicago area. So I have been always near a big city. I've had the opportunity to help families, young families, and teen 20-somethings visiting from other countries, particularly coming from India. So they were all new to the community like I was 20 years before that. And the difficulties that they go through is real. They first are afraid what hemophilia is. They have never seen. Many of them don't know. Then they don't know if they have inhibitors or not. This is something that is absolutely important for them. The local HTC or the hospitals contact me, being the only hemophiliac in the area, to see if I could help them out through insurances and things like that. So it's very, very important for each of us to look for avenues to help out. This is for immigrant families or not. There are people out there who do not know that they need help. So I want to touch on that. I'm also wanted to touch on things like, yes, as you age, people with hemophilia never lived very long due to the HIV crisis and otherwise because of bleeds, etc. But since now we are living into our 60s, 70s, and 80s, like Steve is 80, I'm about 60, a few others here are about 60, we are living more a normal life and we are going to have normal living diseases. That's how I see myself. I myself am an example, and since this is a Blood Brotherhood chat that is being recorded, I want to caution everyone, please look out for signs that your body will say and get treatment as quickly as you can follow your labs, everything. This is very, very important as an advocate. And let me give you examples. I've had a kidney transplant 10 years ago, coming up on 10 years on that. I have had 3 strokes. The third one happened the beginning of this year. I've lost some use of my left hand, some of my vision on the left side again. I still work full time. Now my concerns are the unknowns. The unknowns for me are what's next. And the most important thing in my life is if and when I stop working, because I do intend to stop working sometime, what am I going to do? Second, where is my insurance coming from? I work for a corporation. I have good insurance. I've never had a major issue with insurance. I've always had factor and did the co-pays, etc. Earned enough to pay all those things. I may not be fabulously rich, but I've managed all that. And then now what? There are so many parts to Medicare. I have not a good handle of all these things. This is something that everyone has to be careful about, study, learn. Then there's the financial part, which we never touched here. Say you're living 20 more years. How are you going to live that life? Is your quality of life going to be the same? Have you planned that? So right now I am working with planning my retirement and planning my medical insurances, etc., etc. There are so many aspects of it. And I expect that at some point I will work with HFA and community-facing organizations to help and make programs that will benefit the whole community, males, females, everyone in the community. That's all I had to say. And I wanted this forum, I wanted to use this forum rather to say that out loud. Thank you, Patrick and Marc and everyone else.
You're welcome. And thank you for that, Chris, then Anthony and Sid. So Chris, the floor is yours.
Yeah, what I wanted to touch on what Riley said about insurance and the challenges that we all face with regard to making sure that we have coverage for the medications that we need. Obviously, the Affordable Care Act came along at an opportune time and eliminated caps, annual and lifetime caps. I know that personally, I stayed with jobs that were not as fulfilling as what they might have been because the insurance coverage was good. And I was able to stay with a company for almost 25 years. And the thing that saved me with that, in the end, they had a $10 million lifetime cap. And the year that they were going to drop that down to $2 million and I was going to cap out, the Affordable Care Act kicked in. It's important for us all to educate ourselves and be aware of what's going on with insurance and make sure that we're looking into the future, supporting those organizations that are fighting to maintain the insurance access that's so important to all of us.
Very well said. I can't agree more. Anthony, you are up next, followed by Sid. Go ahead, Anthony.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks, Patrick. So I didn't realize we were all going to get so vulnerable today. So I kind of wanted to touch a little bit on complicated grief, which is just kind of something that I've talked about in passing very briefly and almost comically. It's about not having children. As a gay man, I think we have to plan a little differently when we have a family with our partner, with my husband, who I've been with now for 15 years. And it's one of those things where he and I have talked so many times about whether this is a step that we want to take. And it always comes back on me saying, but what if? What if I get an injury so bad that I'm in a wheelchair? What if I leave you with the responsibility of having to take care of not only this child that we have chosen to take under our wing, but also me and help me through with what I'm going through? And it's just, it always ends up coming back to that situation. And, I've never really been in a situation to feel comfortable like talking about it in a really open way. It's just always kind of been like, oh yeah, well, we don't have any kids because, it's, we made the choice not to, and we move on. And it's definitely the decision that we've made to not have a family has been because of my bleeding disorder and my hemophilia, and hearing other people talk today about, am I a good father, or, wanting to have a family, it just kind of really resonated with me today while we're having this conversation, that's something that I laugh off all the time. But the reason why we don't have children is because I'm worried and scared about what will happen if, God forbid, something were to happen to me and I'm leaving all of that responsibility on my partner. So it was just kind of something I wanted to bring up as talking about complicated grief, and that, that part of my life that I'll never live, that part of my life I'll never get to have, because I made that decision because of my bleeding disorder.
Thank you, Anthony. And thank you to all the Blood Brothers who participated in this Blood Brothers Bloodstream collaboration. A lot of powerful, resonant shares in there, Marc.
Yeah, those were some incredibly powerful stories. And we can't thank the guys who participated enough for just being vulnerable, for having the willingness to share their stories, their fears, their hopes. I'm really excited for the next episode.
Yeah, me too. And with that, that is all for part 2 of this Bloodstream Blood Brotherhood collaboration. I want to thank Bloodstream's presenting sponsor, Takeda. Visit bleedingdisorders.com for more. And thanks to Genentech for supporting this 3-part series spotlighting blood brothers. Visit hemophiliacommunity.com to learn more there. All right, Marc, it's another powerful episode in the books. It's a pleasure doing this with you.
Wouldn't be anywhere else. Thanks so much, Patrick.
And Marc and I will be back in your feed again on December 26th, the day after Christmas, with part 3, the finale of our Blood Brotherhood series. Be sure to subscribe to the Bloodstream Podcast wherever you listen, and leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen. We aim for 5 stars, but that's up to you. You can contact Bloodstream at mailbag@bloodstreammedia.com or find us on social media. We're in all the places. I am your host, Patrick James Lynch.
And I'm your guest host, Marc Pangilinan.
And until next time, take self-care of yourself. Bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone.